Mike, good
What?
afternoon, good evening, whatever it is. I was about to say good morning. I was like, oh, it's not morning anymore, is
A
it?
little later than that, yeah.
It is a little bit later than that. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You?
Pretty good, dude. Pretty good. So, I don't know if there's anything specifically you want to get into before we get into picks and stuff. I know that last week we had a few things that we threw in there to begin with. We had some technical difficulties, but we worked through them, and now we've got this rolling. So, Mike, first off, congrats on taking the lead last week. I appreciate all the, first off, I appreciate you putting up my schedule last week. My best friend was an ATV wreck,
Yeah.
as many people saw. He hit a tree head on and survived and missed the tree, so avoided a lot of very serious injuries. Was in the ICU for a couple days and then was released straight from there to where he is at home currently recovering, doing a lot better. So appreciate all the prayers, thoughts, everything else that everybody sent on that. And then obviously missing this week's and you being able to sit on that lead for an extra week and really think about what you want to do. So
Yep.
outside of that, how's life on your side, man?
Good. Yeah, can't complain. Just been teaching, doing school stuff, and then watching football on weekends, and doing some writing for Farrell. Kind of one of the things that like I'll have ongoing during the season. That'll be my main thing is keeping an updated coach's hot seat. So that's kind of been both real job wise and then school wise what I've been up to. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And coach's hot seat. We got to actually talk about a coach then because we got a coach that's on the hot seat, probably on the way out. I don't think he's officially been fired yet, right? Mel Tucker at Michigan State.
Yeah. Mel has not been fired and he is suspended without pay. And he's one of them who I made the 10 hot seat list. He wasn't on it. And still, even when I update it, I don't think I'm going to put him on there just because the die is cast. He's done. He's not getting the job back. Um, it sounds like the allegations there's probably some merit to them. I of course legally don't know what will stick and what won't, but it sounds like either they're going to pay him a buyout or they won't. But I don't think he'll be back. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. I don't know what the contract and all that stipulates, but I know with a lot of contracts they've had the with cause clauses,
Yes.
and
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that Michigan State, considering the nature of these allegations and the previous problems they've had with these types of allegations of this sort of nature, I would imagine that they probably have a for clause or with cause in this contract.
So that is largely why the investigation is taking place. If they determine that his termination can be with cause. And we hear the term with cause almost always in respect to coaches. It's actually common practice for everybody university wide who is a tenured employee. The purpose of the tenure. So for me, I'm a new professor. I don't have tenure yet. Hopefully, in 5 years, I will get that. But the benefit of the tenure system is once you have tenure at a university, they can only fire you with cause. Like it is an indefinite appointment based on, if you want to stay there. And with cause is the only reason that the university could have to get rid of you.
Interesting. So that's what
Yeah.
they're probably looking at right now is seeing
Yes.
what the with cause would be if there is a case to be made for that. And I think with allegations of that nature, you have a case for with cause. Especially with what has been alleged.
Yeah.
But we'll see where that takes us. Yeah, but Michigan State, who is the interim head coach on their team right now? I know it was named the other day.
Their DVAC coach, Moral Merrill, something to that effect. Harlan Barnett. That's it. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I was way off. Yeah, but no, it's hard. And he is or was the D-backs coach and played in the NFL for a long time. He had been before Michigan State. He was actually with Willie Taggart at Florida State. Then was at Michigan State again prior to that. And then he was an assistant. He was at LSU for 1 year, and it was a year when Nick was there, and they won the national title going back, 20 years ago. Yeah.
Interesting. So he's got some experience, and Michigan State has a big game this week, I do believe. It's a rematch from last year, is it not?
Yep. They got the Huskies at home. Yeah.
And so it's going to be a big game for them this week. And
yeah,
I mean, the stages honestly couldn't be higher for that game.
And that's actually talking about like watching, streaming, and so on. That game is actually on Peacock because they have picked up some of it as an NBC subsidiary. They have some games, so that is actually a game that's on Peacock. I know that. Yeah,
no, and that the Peacock thing. I mean, I know that they're really trying to get that rolling this year.
Yeah,
I know that's they've had a couple games on there. I think this was the first really big game that they were putting on there. At least high profile schools. Up to this point, it had been basically big schools against cupcakes, and so I think they're going to use that to test their streaming audience. Yeah. So, but yeah, so let's go ahead here and take a look at the leaderboard, because this is an important thing right now, I think, to talk about, is the fact that right now with the picks that we've made, Mike, overall we are 3-2.
Yeah. So I have the 5 picks that I made and our challenges. I don't have the 5 picks that you made, but I'm prepared to go over the ones I got right and wrong if you want me to.
I wasn't prepared for that myself, but we can if you'd like.
So I was wrong about Minnesota. That was the first game I had picked in week 1. I picked Minnesota minus 7.5 to cover Nebraska. Mm-hmm. They needed a last-second field goal to win that game. Louisville minus 8 against Georgia Tech. I was sweating that one for most of the game. Louisville eventually did cover that one. ECU plus 36.5 against Michigan. I don't want to say I lucked into that one. I was also sweating it out. We knew that one was going to be close to that 36.5 range, and it was. Michigan didn't do much on offense in the second half, which certainly got me the W there.
Yep.
New Mexico plus 38.5 against Texas A&M. That wasn't, they lost by 30-something, but I covered. I can't remember what. Oh, Texas State plus 27.5 against Baylor. I was right about that one.
Yes, you were.
I've probably never been more right about such a lopsided game. And even I didn't see that one coming. I have no idea how that one happened.
Well, what's funny too is I challenged you on 2 games. And I think actually I believe my graphic is wrong. No, it is. It's right, because you beat me on both of the challenges. That's why you're 2-0 and I'm 1-1. So I challenged you on the Texas State Baylor game, which obviously Texas State covered.
Yeah, your graphics mixed up. The one you got right, I got a challenge wrong.
That's right. Yep.
Because you had picked Wazoo to cover 11.5 against Colorado State. I thought Colorado State would cover, and they did not.
I like Wazoo this year a lot.
Yeah.
I took Hawaii at plus 3.5 over Stanford. Missed on that. I thought Hawaii had a really good chance to beat that Stanford team.
I love that challenge when you made it. Yeah.
Utah State, I like them at 24.5 over Iowa, which they covered. I liked Western Kentucky at 12.5 over South Florida, which they covered thanks to a late fumble recovery for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Washington State. I also thought that LSU would beat Florida State, and I had to eat that one.
Yeah, that was my other challenge.
Was your other challenge?
I thought the Seminoles would come through with that
Yep.
one, and God, it's been a long time since I've seen a half that dominant against another good team. The first half was back and forth, nail biter. Then they just blew them away after halftime, like a flip switch. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, no, it was a tough it was a tough one for LSU Sunday night. That's for sure. I think you could probably say they got exposed. But let's go ahead and start talking games, man, because we got 5 rounds to get through yet again. Taking notes this time. Like I said, I think I put challenges on that graphic. I set it up so that, I challenged you twice and you won both challenges. You challenged me twice. You won one, you lost one. I think that's how that worked, right? So
yes, that is how it happened. I won one, lost one, and then
that's why we're at 15-5. I lost 10 points on my challenges. You lost 5 and gained 5. So that's where we're at, 15-5 on the season. Got a 10-point lead. Let's start with the first round. First round, you like Maryland at 13.5 over Virginia.
I do. Maryland has offensively, they had a lot to replace, especially receiver wise. I mean, that whole room pretty much got overhauled, but with Talia being back, their defensive front and the O lines look a lot better. This is a Friday night game, by the way, but I'm not sold on Virginia either, which is a big part of this. But Hemby is running the ball pretty well for Maryland. Dyches is doing all right receiving. I mean, Maryland in their 2 games, they played UNC Charlotte and Towson FCS. They've put up 38 points in both of them, which I would have expected that against an FCS team, but they are throwing the ball well, which I expected. I didn't think they'd be running the ball as well as they have been. And that's a big reason why I like them to cover that against Virginia.
I'm not going to challenge you on this one because this is a game I looked at and I was like, I don't want to touch this.
Yeah.
And it's because I took Virginia straight up last week, actually. Obviously didn't talk about it on the show. We weren't on last week, but I took Virginia straight up. I thought they would beat James Madison, and they blew it late in the game, 36-35, even with the emotion behind them. First game back in the stadium since the tragedy last November.
Yeah.
And obviously we're dismantled by Tennessee, too. I mean, it wasn't even close. So, granted, Tennessee is a top, I think, 11 team this week. They're at 11. Yeah. So I watched a lot of the Maryland Charlotte game that was on NBC, and I see the passing thing that you're talking about, and obviously, I like the receivers there. Caden Prather, the transfer from West Virginia, is solid. Tyrese Chambers, the transfer from Florida International, is solid as well. But I don't know, man. I don't want to touch it, so I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to let you either win or lose this one. So I'm not doing anything on that. This week, though, I like LSU. I know that I took LSU in the first episode and got burned. This is a much less competitive team in Mississippi State than Florida State. So I like LSU at 9.5 here. Granted, they looked like an SEC team again last week. They took down Grambling, scored 70 on them, even with the the clock rules changing. They've got a lot of big play players across the board. I just don't think Mississippi State's going to have the offense to stay with them. And I don't think they have the defense to really slow them down that much. I know that last year they did a really good job keeping Jaden Daniels in the pocket. I don't think they have that this year. I'm not a big Will Rogers guy outside of fantasy. He's a great fantasy addition. I don't think he's a great quarterback. So I like LSU. I like them at 9.5. I think they could easily win by 2 touchdowns.
I've been pretty steadfast most of the offseason that I think Mississippi State will probably finish last in the West. I don't think they did much. I wasn't truly inspired by Kevin Barbe was a decent hire at O coordinator, but they changed a lot of who they had been coming from Appalachian State. And this is one of those games where my eyes tell me one thing, but all the stats and numbers say something else. And for the sake of adding some variety and spice and excitement, I'm going to go with the numbers and what they tell me to do. I'm going to challenge this one. So I'm going to go with the Bulldogs on this one. Yeah.
Dang. Going Bulldogs. So what are the numbers telling you, Who's? What are the numbers telling you?
The Sharps are heavily on Mississippi State on this one. And not heavily. They're favoring them. It would be false to say that they're heavy. But at 9.5, if it was any less, I wouldn't do it. But right around that, just under 10 points is kind of where I like this one and think it should be, and what I saw some of the gambling sites putting it at. So I'm going with Mississippi State on this one.
Interesting. So the first challenge of the day comes from Who's, and it is Mississippi State. He likes them at plus 9.5. So that's our first challenge.
It is
of the day. Round 2. You like Rutgers, apparently.
I do like
6.5 over Virginia Tech.
Saying I like Rutgers might be a little bit of an overstatement. I don't like Virginia Tech. And that might be a little harsh on Rutgers. They're quietly getting a lot better than they've been. Greg Schiano's doing a very good job, and they're no longer the laughingstock bottom feeder they were. They potentially will be a bowl team. They're 2-0. They could go to a bowl game this year. They're doing a lot of good things. Their O-line's a lot better. And you look at, they play Virginia Tech. I think they'll win it. They're going to lose to Michigan after that. Then they have an FCS game. And after that, you're at 4 wins with 7 to go. That's pretty good. And they still would have Indiana, Maryland. Now, they have a lot of tough games because they crossed over with Wisconsin and Iowa, which are not going to be gimmies at all. But they're doing a lot. Gavin Wimsett is looking like the 4-star recruit that he once was. Kyle Monongai's running the ball well. Jaquay Jackson, I think, is their leading receiver. But truly for them, it's the Hogs up front they've been a lot more impressive this year for me. And with Virginia Tech, I'm not a big Grant Wells believer. They're not running the ball well at all. Their leading receiver through 2 games has like 50 yards rushing. Lane, their receiver's all right. They have one pretty good receiver.
Transfer from MTSU.
Exactly. Yep. They beat ODU, lost to Purdue, and I'm just not a believer in the Hokies. I thought Brett Pry was a good hire at the time. He's in year 2 now. We haven't seen it yet. So, that's why I like Rutgers in this one.
That's all fair enough. And I don't like Virginia Tech either, so I can't begin to challenge this one. I've seen them play a little bit this year compared to what they've lost. This is the one thing that we've kind of noticed this year is if you did really well in the transfer portal, your team is pretty darn good. So Virginia Tech did not do great in the transfer portal at all.
They did no.
They did very little with it, and I think that's what they're kind of seeing. Rutgers, on the other hand, pulled a couple of good guys. They've been quiet, like you said, quietly building a good team. Took care of business against Northwestern, which isn't that much of an accomplishment, but it is something still. Yeah, I agree with you. I like Rutgers here.
Yeah,
at 6.5. I can't begin to challenge this one.
Okay.
I do like Liberty minus 3.5 over Buffalo. And I saw this one and I thought I might be able to entice you into a challenge here, Who's, because, and you and Mac, and you like the Mac. And Buffalo played decently well against Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, which that win really has been discredited, I think, because of the way that Washington State took care of business against Wisconsin last week. However, Liberty, Jamie Caldwell is the head coach, formerly from Coastal Carolina.
Coastal, yep.
And he's got a really good quarterback in Kadon Salter, who fits that offense really well and has played pretty well through the first couple weeks. I like Liberty here, taking care of business and winning by probably a little bit more than a touchdown over Buffalo. I know Buffalo's got Cole Snyder, and Cole Snyder's probably a very low-key professional prospect, but I just don't think Buffalo's got enough to compete with Liberty.
Yeah. Another guy on Buffalo, I like Marlon Johnson, pretty solid receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And I like what you did there, trying to entice me with this one. Buffalo was a team I had some luck with last year, largely because they got lucky and played all kinds of backup quarterbacks as the season went on. But I will not be challenging this one. I am with you on Liberty. I like what Chadwell's doing, and like you said, Salter's a good player. Isn't he a Dallas guy originally? Am I right about that?
El Paso area. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep, but was a 4-star quarterback that committed to Tennessee, got caught in that scandal with the money bags and the McDonald's bags, so or Chick-fil-A bags, whatever they were, I don't remember. Yeah. But so he's ended up at Liberty and taken that starting job by storm this year. Played really well, I thought, through the first couple of weeks. So I like Liberty a lot here. And I'm glad that you agree with me. So no challenge there.
Yeah.
On to round 3. You like UTSA at 8.5 over Army because this is a trend that you started last year.
Yeah.
You hate America. And
would be an overstatement. I'm a military family. I'm gonna throw that out there. Yeah.
I gotta throw it, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. I gotta throw it.
No, I picked against them enough where it is a fair label to throw at me in a football sense. I'm with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But this is one where I like UTSA. I think is a pretty solid team. The guys on UTSA, for those of you like you and me who watch a lot of football, we've seen these UTSA guys play a lot. Frank Harris has played a ton of football. Kavorian Barnes, Clark, Clark has been hurt this year, but there's a lot of veterans on that UTSA team, and they can run the ball well with a lot of different guys. They can throw the ball pretty well, and Army, I think, is getting better, but with the new cut block rules, them and Navy had to change their identity on offense so much. Like you can't, cut from out, you can't come outside in and do it, outside of the tackle box. So you really hurt those teams that were, doing triple option out of the veer. And we're early in the year. Army lost their opener in a close one. I think it was ULM. Then they beat Delaware State. UTSA lost a battle to Houston.
Very tight battle.
Then they won a tight one against Texas State, which, to be fair, it was a one-possession game. UTSA was the better team. Like I never really felt like they were going to lose. But, with that, Harris, I talked about Barnes. Cephas is a guy I didn't mention, heck of a receiver. Cardnos, very good tight end. I think UTSA is the right play in this one. And I believe that they will win by at least a touchdown and a field goal, which is what I need to happen in this game.
I understand your rationale and everything, but as a matter of principle, I have to challenge this.
Fair.
Because we love the Army here. We love America on this side of the screen, okay? And as a matter of principle, now my argument will be that UTSA's got this game, which is a game that you have to be very disciplined and very focused for.
You do. Yeah.
And then next week they got a huge game against Tennessee where, you got two bad games back to back.
Yep.
And so sometimes when you got a spread even like this, against a team that you need to be disciplined against, running that triple option. Army's done a little bit of different stuff too with it, kind of expanding a little bit outside the triple option this year, doing some different things. So it requires a lot of focus. I think that Army has enough, depth where they can kind of keep with them a little bit and make this a really tough game for UTSA, especially if they put any focus this week on Tennessee next week.
Yeah.
And I think that, you've got a reason to put focus on Tennessee next week because Tennessee just struggled against Austin Peay. So if you're UTSA, you're looking at that as an opportunity. You're smelling blood in the water.
Yeah.
You got a chance to pull off a huge upset. And I think that this is one game that could potentially get overlooked because of the way that Army played against ULM in week 1. So I actually like Army here.
One quick note, for both games I picked so far, this UTSA Army game also is a Friday night game for those of you that want to watch football on Friday night.
Yep. I will not be able to. I'll be at a game, actually, a high school game.
Good
Battle
for
Beaufort Station. Battle for Beaufort Station.
Go Bobcats. Go Bobcats. No.
Well, no. Bobcats are off, so this one is strictly this is the Richmond Raiders.
Oh, sorry, I was wrong.
Yeah, it's okay. And the Cornersville is the other team that's coming in, and these are two rivals that hate each other. It's a big night for the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, particularly the cancer section of it. And they're doing a huge fundraiser. So it's a big deal. It's a big game. I'm be out there for that, doing some other stuff, not calling it, but doing some other stuff.
Awesome. So, very cool.
My third round pick here that I went with, I like San Diego State at 24.5 over Oregon State. Now, as the underdogs, I think that's a good spread they can cover. Now, the one thing I think that we've noticed with San Diego State so far this year, very good defense. I got 7 guys in that secondary that I'm looking at. I got a couple defensive linemen I'm looking at too. They're very deep. They got a lot of players across the defense, and they played really well. They knocked out Curtis O'Rourke, so we didn't get a really good shot to see what they kind of looked like in that game against Ohio in week 1, but they followed it back up with a good defensive performance in week 2. I think that this is a team. I know that Oregon State has had a couple really good weeks to start, but San Diego State played San Jose State. Did they? I don't think they won by 25 in that game, did they?
I have the score here. They won 42-17, so they won by exactly 25.
So you're basically, this is a bet that you're saying that San Diego State is on the exact same level as San Jose State. I don't think so. I like this. I like San Diego State covering.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about this one.
I bet you did.
Because you talked about their defense. Over the summer, one of the things I did for Farrell, who we talked about, top 10 D coordinators in the country. One of the few G5 guys that made that list, Kurt Maddox, San Diego State. Their run defense and the turnovers they've forced have been fantastic over the last couple of years. The number of guys he's had that have been all conference is wild in recent years too. And a combination of that, how much Oregon State likes to run the ball, both with Martinez, who's killing it, and DJU. And then Fenwick is not a bad other back too. And the new clock rules. I think that helps San Diego State cover this as well. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that not only are they a really good run defense, on the San Diego side, on the San Diego State side, but if you shut down the run game for Oregon State, I think we haven't seen what DJU is going to do when that happens because he hasn't really faced that yet.
No, he hasn't.
So I think that's when you force DJU to start throwing the ball to win. I think that's when you start to run into problems, and that's why I really liked them on that spread. I thought that was a huge one and definitely worthy of taking.
Yeah.
Round 4, man. We're 3 rounds in. Only 2 challenges so far. Wrapping that up, you got Mississippi State at plus 9.5. I took Army at plus 8.5. You like Kansas State minus 5 over Missouri.
I do. K-State is playing well. They beat Southeast Missouri, which we would have expected them to. Though Southeast Missouri is a top 25 FCS team. They're pretty legit.
Yes, they are. They are really
and
good.
then K-State throttled Troy, who probably has the best G5 defense in the country, or certainly up there. But I like what K-State is doing. Howard has been playing very well through their first couple games. They are running the ball well. DJ Giddens, Trayshawn Ward are both carrying the ball well. Oddly enough, Howard isn't carrying the ball a ton from the quarterback spot. However, he is near the goal line, and he has more rushing touchdowns than anybody on that team because he's plunging it in whenever they're close. And then on offense, they have quite a few receivers that they're spreading it around to. RJ Garcia, Phillip Brooks are both solid players. Sinot, the tight end, is a good tight end as well. So I'm impressed with K-State, and they're a team that they're always salty up front. They're getting a good push on the O-line, and then defensively, they've been lights out. Troy got 13 on them, then they got the shutout last week. They've been breeding good D-backs since they've been there. And Mizzou, I don't hate Mizzou, but I don't really like them either. Their Brady Cook numbers are actually decent at QB, but he's just kind of ho-hum. Schrader's doing all right at running back. Luther Burden is a stud any way you look at it at receiver.
He won't be there next year.
No, the dude, yeah, he likely will portal unless they can really pony up an NIL for him. And the year after next, he'll be playing on Sundays. But I don't think Mizzou has enough on the defensive side of the ball to keep this one close, nor do I think offensively they'll put up many points. So I like K-State to win this by a touchdown.
So, yeah, I agree with you on Missouri. I was on the Tim Bailey show last Friday, and
awesome. Yeah.
And I saw we were talking about the MTSU Missouri matchup a little bit, and I said, look, that's going to be a close game because MTSU's got some real players on both sides of the ball. So I said, don't look at that as a Mizzou's going to cover and all that stuff. I actually talked about that, and MTSU brought it. They were in it till the very end.
They were
23-19. And so I think when you see that, maybe Mizzou was looking ahead a little bit, but still their offense is not impressive, not even by national standards, let alone SEC. And the defense, I think the defense has a little bit more than you're giving them credit for, but still against Kansas State, I don't think that they're going to have enough to stop them.
I might have sold them a little short. They're decent at rushing the passer. I should have said that.
No, they are. But I think that Will Howard's a guy that the Senior Bowl really likes. Will Howard's a guy a lot of people really like him. So keep an eye on him for sure this year, because even last year when he was playing, he was getting a lot of talk around the league and stuff. They really like him. He's a good quarterback and a good quarterback prospect. So yeah, I like him. I like that one too. I can't touch that. I can't challenge that one. Because I can't see Mizzou coming close to 5, honestly.
Well,
now I'll tell you what I did like when I saw this, and I thought this was a steal when I saw it. Western Kentucky plus 27.5 over Ohio State. And actually, since I texted you that, I know that because I logged on and I put the bet in right before we got started. It's at plus 29.5 now.
Yeah.
So it's moving in Ohio State's favor, and I'm not exactly sure why, but I'll tell you why I like Western Kentucky. Because Austin Reed is a legit quarterback. Austin Reed has stepped into this thing. It's not just the Western Kentucky system. He might be the best guy that they've put through there, and that's including Bailey Zappi a couple of years ago. I know that there was a guy before Bailey, too. And I can't think of his name right now. But Western Kentucky has a explosive offense, and their defense is just good enough to where they can make some plays happen and slow things down. And we just haven't seen this Ohio State team start to click yet at all on offense. And so I think that, when you look at Kyle McCord and, I thought that the offense looked better when Devin Brown was playing personally. I thought that they just had more explosion and had more success when he was at the quarterback position. But regardless, this is a team that hasn't scored over 5 touchdowns in a game yet. And usually at this point, they're blowing their opposition out. They've played Indiana and Youngstown State. They couldn't put more than 5 touchdowns on Youngstown State, who was 3-9 last year. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on. So, I really like Western Kentucky covering. I don't think Western Kentucky is going to get within 2 touchdowns at the end of the day, but I think that they're not going to let it get outside of 4.
It was a common quip I would have most shows we did last year, John, where I would see your 5 games and immediately there was one where I'm like, I'm not touching that game. I'm not going anywhere near it. That was this game this week because I'm like, 27. Like maybe Ohio State will beat them by 35, but maybe Western Kentucky keeps it around 20 the whole game. Like I don't know what's going to happen. Like you mentioned a lot of really good reasons why Western Kentucky is legit, and they are. And you also talked about Ohio State hasn't clicked offensively. What if this is the game they do? Would be my question.
Yeah.
It will happen at one point, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of that one. I think Ohio State has the potential to do that this week because one thing Western Kentucky had the last 2 years, last year they were either number 3 or 4, and the year before that they were number 1 in turnovers forced. It's really tough to keep replicating that. And if they don't do that this year, the defense could fall off a bit. So I think there's too many what ifs for me to touch this game. And I'll be honest, it's one of those I would have no confidence betting either side of it. If I would have had to pick, I probably would have went the Buckeyes. At the line you have here at 27.5. At 29, I'm a lot more scared of that line. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a lot more confident at 29.5. I'm feeling great about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the Sharps are all over Ohio State on this one. Like almost like they're expecting something, which is sometimes it's a good sign, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But I really like Western Kentucky in this matchup. So,
yeah.
Round 5. Toledo, you like them -8 over San Jose State. Toledo, probably the best team in the MAC right now against San Jose State, who's a middling team in the Mountain West. Talk a little bit about that.
So this will probably be the first of 10 times I picked Toledo this season. I'm only slightly kidding, but I guarantee I will pick Toledo more than this. We can talk about putting a rule in where you can only pick a team so many times if you want, John.
No, you can run the same team all year.
I like Toledo a lot this year. I think Jason Candle's a really good coach. Toledo lost to Illinois in the opener, 30-28. I think they might go 11-1 in the regular season. They're going to be good. They have Daquan Finn, who's a good quarterback. Newton is a very solid receiver who they know how to get the ball to downfield and in space. Vandross is another good receiver who they stat-wise, those two are almost identical to each other. I know that. Running the ball-wise, Jaquez Stewart has done well, found the end zone a few times. Penny Boone, who it seems like has been in college forever, thanks to the COVID year, is also running well, as is Finn. Finn's a multi-dimensional guy. Toledo's going to be salty in both trenches, O&D, and not why I said I'll mention them a lot the rest of the season too. They were one of the few MAC teams that didn't get decimated by the transfer portal. Some of those teams just got blasted. They returned most of their guys from the team that won the MAC last year. So I'm very high on Toledo this year. San Jose State, I don't think they're bad. Siobhan Cordero is a pretty good QB for that level. Um, and Conley is a good running back. But at this spread in the Glass Bowl in Toledo, I'll take a touchdown and a field goal, which is what I need for the Rockets to cover this one.
Yeah, you picked a good one. And it's like part of me wants to challenge it just because I've only challenged you on Army. But it's really hard to justify it. I mean, San Jose
It
State,
is. Yeah.
they don't have, in terms of just straight up matchup, it's not in San Jose State's favor. And there's no trump card either where you can sit there and say, oh, well, they have this. This player is going to make that kind of a difference. Either they don't have that.
No.
So it's not even one that I could really touch. It's like you purposely picked these so that I can't touch them. You enticed me into one over with the Army, but yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I think that Toledo, I don't know if they go 11-1. They definitely have a shot to. I just think that with the MAC and with the Tuesday and Wednesday games, once that all starts, that really starts to put a hole into your game prep, and it's weird and weird things happen in action.
Yeah.
But no, they are the best team.
There aren't too many teams in the country who will be favored to win every game they play in the rest of the regular season. Toledo's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be favored to win everyone. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on that. We got to talk about Cordero because he's basically like poor man Tua Tagovailoa is what he is. I mean, very similar skill set, very similar, just maybe not as great of an arm, maybe not as great of an athlete, but very similar play style. So yeah, I can't see San Jose State finding any way to hang with Toledo on that. And I think at -8, that's really good.
Yeah.
So I actually liked Arkansas at -8.5 over BYU. And let's talk a little bit about this one because Arkansas is probably right now out of the SEC the most underrated team in the conference.
Absolutely.
Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking, like they've got so many guys that have been on this team. It feels like we've been talking about KJ Jefferson forever. Yeah. And he's been the starter there for so long. You've got Raheem Sanders coming back. He's been a starter the last couple of years. He's only a junior and it feels like he's probably a senior. And then you got, the receiver group that you brought in. They did a great job hammering the transfer portal last year. They did a great job again this year. This is a really explosive offense, and they've got some defensive weapons too. So I know that BYU has a really good defense, and they've put that on display. I don't think BYU is ready for this Arkansas offense at all. And I don't think that the BYU offense is anywhere near close to what Arkansas has on defense. I think that that's just a total mismatch. I think that the 8.5 is a very generous spread. I don't see it being anywhere near close to that.
No, this is one where right away I'm like, oh God, I want to pick another game to challenge. But I can't even do that here. Like, Arkansas, they didn't look great against Kent State, but they also were vanilla and didn't show anything because they knew they were going to win. So, I mean, we went from talking about Toledo, the best MAC team, to Kent State, who's the worst MAC team. So Arkansas did what they had to do to win. Rocket Sanders didn't even play much, which shows you how confident they were in that game. But I agree with you. Not that they've been super impressive for 2 games, though KJ Jefferson has looked really good. But I do agree with you to some extent on the underratedness of them. And they're a team, I said this to someone a couple days ago. I feel like very few P5 teams could fluctuate as much as Arkansas this year. If KJ's on, Rocket stays healthy, and so on, they could be a 10-win team. But if KJ gets hurt like he's done before and things go south, they could be a 5-win team. Like, there's so much fluctuation there. But right now, they're looking to be on the upside of that, and I think they're going to be pretty good. And matchup-wise, I think this favors them a lot. So that defense is pretty good. They brought in Singletary and Johnson in the defensive backfield. And then up front, Jeffcoat and Jackson are good coming off of the edge. They got some players there who are legit. Dwight McLaughlin is another guy that seems like we've been talking about him for years. Been a good corner there. And I can't pick against Arkansas in this one.
No, it's Arkansas. Arkansas is a sleeping giant right now, honestly, in my opinion. But we got 2 challenges this week, Who's?
Yep.
You've challenged me on Mississippi State and LSU. You like them at plus 9.5. I like LSU on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And I've got a challenge on UTSA at 8.5. I like Army at plus 8.5. So there's our challenges. You got anything else that you want to throw to the fine people and let them know about?
No, not that we didn't cover already. I feel like season's been off to a fun start and looking forward to week 3. I feel like this is if you look at the slate of games this weekend, this is the worst weekend we will have. The rest of every weekend will be better than this one the rest of the way through. There's no matchup against 2 ranked teams this week, but it'll still be fun to watch games.
Absolutely. It's always fun to watch games.
Yeah.
Come on, man. But before we get out of here, we definitely do have to talk about this. We got to talk about the Heisman.
Okay.
And
we do.
When we started out the first episode of this, we talked about several guys that we identified as potential prospects, for this award at the end of the year. And in my opinion, I think we've got one guy that's really popped out, and that's Shader Sanders at Colorado.
He looked good. Yeah.
I mean, 2 really good games, going into TCU, the runner-up for the national championship, beating them in their house, throwing for 510 yards, and then following it back up with almost another 400 yards passing the next week against a Nebraska defense that's typically pretty stingy. I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Shader so far and the entire Colorado team. Travis Hunter obviously has been amazing.
Yeah.
Is there any like right now, is this Shader Sanders trophy to lose, I guess?
No. And I'll say why. And it's me kind of correcting a mistake I may have made when we talked about this preseason. I said that, Caleb Williams had to go in as the favorite, but he would have to wow us even more than he did because of already winning it. Their voters are going to want that something extra, that more. In my opinion, he's done that. I don't think a lot of people realize how absolutely dominant and unbelievable Caleb Williams has been so far. The guy's been lights out. It's been a joy to watch him. Now, I still believe that, yes, he may have to do something extra to win it. I would argue he may have done that. But Sanders has been lights out too. They're both really good. And another guy who it looks like will at least be in New York as a finalist, especially after last weekend. Quinn Ewers is going to be in the contender. He's going to be a contender the whole year because he's good. They're going to throw the ball a lot, and they're going to win a lot of games.
Absolutely. Yeah. Quinn was a guy that I came into on the year as he's my QB3 on the draft side of it. Yeah. Because I thought I would see that step forward. We saw that step forward with his deep ball. He started hitting his deep ball. Yeah. Against that Alabama secondary, that's not a joke. So I thought
another guy who we didn't talk about today at all, but I think you mentioned him in week 1. QB, going to get touchdowns, on TV a lot, going to win a lot of games. Jordan Travis is probably going to be in the mix too, especially after how they looked in week 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we now definitely know that they have another wide receiver to take coverage off of Johnny Wilson. Keon Coleman looks like he's the real deal too. So Travis is another guy that's going to be in the mix. It's interesting to talk about though. Right now, there doesn't appear to be any major Big Ten candidates. Now that certainly will change. McCarthy, Corum, heck, McCord or Harrison both could come into the mix. but maybe even Alar, though I don't know about that one. But right now, you wouldn't put any Big Ten guy in the top 5, I don't think.
No, not at all. I think you can make the best case that you've got to make is JJ McCarthy at 5. I think that's probably the best case.
Yeah,
that's the best one you could make. But yeah, no, it's been.
You're gonna put him ahead of Michael Penix at this point. I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. No, Penix is up there, and I thought Bo Nix has looked really good too, considering all things.
Absolutely, yeah. Forgot about him.
Mm-hmm. It's a Pac-12 year, man. It's the end of the Pac-12, and they're going out with fireworks.
They sure are. Yeah, and we haven't even seen Cam Rising play yet.
Oh shoot, man! Can you imagine? Yeah, that's gonna be wild. It's going to be absolutely wild. Well, Mike, appreciate you as always. I think this is a good show. We've got 2 challenges, so we'll go ahead and just review them one more time. You've got me on the LSU Mississippi State game. I've got you on the UTSA Army game.
Yeah,
because I love America.
That is you can portray it. That can be the narrative for this week if you want.
That was the narrative all of last year. Come on, man.
It was. Yeah.
You would just be. I remember one week you picked against Army and Navy in the same week, and I thought for sure you're about to roll against Air Force too, and find some way to bring up Colgate.
maybe next week I'll be like the CNN guy was this week, and I'll have the Iranian president in here with me making picks next week.
Oh man, can you imagine?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh man, that would start some stuff. Well, thank you as always.
Sure yeah, I was glad to be here. It was another fun week.
Yeah, good week, and we'll be back at it next week. Let's see what the scoreboard is. Will I be tied, or will Who's extend the lead? Find out next week on Gridiron Eve.